This is a question I get asked very often, and as with most plant-related care topics, it doesn't have a straightforward answer. I have quite a few repotting videos you can watch where I briefly touch upon this topic, but I feel it needs a bit of a deep dive to properly explain the when. Many very different plants fall under the umbrella term succulent, and what is good for one may not necessarily suit the other. In this video, we'll have a look at which seasons are the best for repotting, when to repot based on succulent type, and how the succulent grows. Before we get into the best time to repot, I think it's important to quickly explain when succulents need to be repotted. You may just find that some succulents don't need to be repotted as often as others. For instance, indoor shade-tolerant succulents don't grow as fast as their counterparts outdoors and may only need repotting once every other year. Same goes for slow-growing succulents such as some Haworthia, lithops or cacti. There are a few ways of establishing whether or not your succulent is in need of a new home. The easiest one is to look how root-bound your succulent is. If the roots have colonized every bit of the pot and are trying to escape through the hole, or if your succulent is starting to lose bottom leaves, repotting may be needed. Another one is deterioration. When a succulent has been in the same pot for a very long time and is not looking too well, losing leaves, not growing much or growing leggy, it may be in need of repotting. Potting mix wastes away after a while, and once the nutrients are used up, the succulent does not have anywhere to draw energy from other than photosynthesis, which is not often enough for succulents in pots. And lastly, you may need to repot your succulent if there's fungus growing in the potting mix. It is not unusual to see this in potting mix with ingredients such as pine bark fines or other wood. Fungus will colonize the pot, and from my personal experience, most succulents don't grow very well if there's a lot of fungus. They don't usually die from fungus in potting mix, but it may inhibit their growth. But if your succulent is looking well, not showing signs of stress, it may not need repotting at all. Succulents can settle into a pot and may look great even after a couple of years of not repotting. They will probably not grow too much, but if you're happy with how they look, you may not need to bother. My small nursery is super busy at the beginning of spring, as that's when we do the majority of propagating and repotting for the months ahead. Pretty much all of the succulents and other plants we cultivate start growing rapidly in the last weeks of winter and through spring. Spring is such a great time to repot any succulent if they need it, because all succulents grow at this time. This is important because not all succulents share the same growing seasons. Some are dormant over the hot months and grow during winter, while others do the exact opposite. To add to the complexity of this, the growing seasons may be different for the same succulent in different parts of the world. So if you're not sure when your succulent grows and when it's dormant, spring is ideal. Spring should also be the best season if you live in a climate with cold, frosty and white winters. The short growing season will then be used up by the plant to grow and take advantage of all the nutrients. If, like me, you're lucky enough to have a longer growing season with mild winters, repotting can be done from spring to early autumn for most succulents. Some succulents, such as Aeonium or small sedum, are usually dormant during summer, especially when hot, and should be repotted from mid-autumn through to spring. Sometimes succulents and increasingly the weather won't play according to the rules, and you may have to repot when the plant needs it. For instance, I beheaded this Echeveria in the first month of winter for the sake of a video. Echeveria don't usually grow much and don't root very well here in the winter months, and so I normally would not do this until spring. But the temperatures have been above average from July, and pretty much all my plants are growing more than usual. I even planted seeds in my vegetable gardens as an experiment and now have tomato, cucumber and melon seedlings growing happily. This is definitely not normal. And as for this beheaded Echeveria, I already have 2 heads growing less than a month later. Succulents and other plants are highly attuned to temperature and light. But when temperature does unusual things, they can go dormant or grow when they're not meant to. As a result, you may have to repot when the plant needs it rather than the recommended time frame. As an example, I had to repot this poor agave a little too close to its dormant season due to hot weather we had in autumn, making it severely root bound and losing leaves. Succulents can start deteriorating when too root bound, and repotting may be the best you can do for them, whatever the season may be. Another thing that can force your hand is growth speed. Some succulents grow and spread so much when conditions are good, you may even need to repot a couple of times in one growing season. If you don't repot, they may start growing aerial roots and lose leaves. I've repotted this Aeonium sunburst a couple of months ago and it is root bound again. It still has another 3 or so months of growth ahead, so I'll just have to give it a bigger home. Repotting may seem like a good pastime in winter, but I would not recommend it. Yes, a lot of succulents even when dormant can grow a little, especially if you provide warmth over winter, but the new potting mix is likely to be wasted. In my personal experience, one of 2 things is likely to happen. 1. Dormant succulents can grow roots without actually growing much above ground, and so they'll colonize the pot, but the actual size will remain almost unchanged. If you'll want the succulents to grow foliage and branches, you may need to repot again once the growing season comes around. The second issue you may encounter is that neither the roots or the rest of the plants grows and the potting mix just wastes away a bit. The nutrients and slow-release fertilizer that are usually part of succulent potting mix can wash out and degrade over the winter months, leaving little for the plant to feed on when spring rolls around. This can also be a problem because the extra potting mix will stay water for longer, which may encourage fungus to take hold. In winter, evaporation slows down and other fungi, particularly the ones that you really don't want to invite like those causing rot, may find it easier to attack. So if your succulents are not looking too stressed, it may be best to just wait until spring or when they start growing again. And that is all for today. I hope this video was useful, and if you have something to add or want to ask a question, you can do so in the comments below. To learn more about succulents, hit the subscribe button or go to succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you very much for watching.